Similar strategies used for civilians will be effective for military retirement planning. Military members have access to IRAs and their employment counts towards Social Security benefits. The unique aspect in retirement planning is the offered employer plan called the Blended Retirement System, or BRS. The three-tiered system includes a defined benefit plan, a defined contribution plan, and Social Security benefits. While this is the main source of retirement planning, civilian accounts can be added to the mix. As with their civilian counterparts, the conversation around retirement planning starts with an emergency fund. A service member's emergency fund may encompass savings required to help PCS separate from the military and other components, in addition to traditional unforeseen events. Keeping 3 to 6 months of essential expenses in a high yield savings account is a good starting point. A greater emergency fund might be needed as they start to consider transitioning out of the military or if their spouse has difficulty maintaining employment. The next bucket to tackle will be aiming to get the DoD's full match to the TSP. The Department of Defense matches up to 5% of the contributions made by the service member into the Thrift Savings Plan. Once a full match is achieved, adding a Roth IRA is a good choice traditionally. Due to having access to a Roth TSP, which is a low-cost, well-diversified platform, they may not require extensive use of a Roth IRA while on active duty. Opening into a Roth IRA during their time in the program is still required in order to receive third decade funds. Having an open Roth IRA prepared for the time they do transition out of the active duty service is beneficial. The decision to continue active service to the required 20 years to receive the pension will be an ongoing consideration. There is no benefit to calculate if the participant leaves service earlier. It's an all or nothing benefit. Any additional funds for medium or long-term savings could be contributed to a taxable brokerage account. Also available for those who serve in designated combat zones is the Savings Deposit Program. A minimum of $5 can be deposited with a balance maximum of $10,000. It earns 10% annually. Service members in this program should speak with their command's appropriate department or research the DFAS website, as there are complicated and specific eligibility, contribution, and withdrawal rules. We've broken down the retirement vehicles into three main categories: the blended retirement system offered to uniformed service members, and the civilian offerings of the IRA and employer-sponsored plans. We will dive deeper into the BRS soon, but this is an overview of its benefits. They are entitled to a pension after 20 years of creditable service. They receive a government investment into their thrift savings plan at 1% their base pay with the option of contributing more. Key points for successful investing in TSP include taking advantage of the matching contribution up to 5% max, understanding the difference between traditional and Roth TSP options to maximize tax benefits, and selecting an appropriate mix of the TSP's limited but diverse fund options to achieve a balanced and diversified portfolio. While on active service, they can also access an IRA, as we mentioned. While fees are low and investment options are encouraged through the TSP, contributions to the TSP can only be made in percentages of base pay. This makes it challenging to add one-time additional contributions. When approaching the conversation around whether to have an IRA or TSP or both, educate them on the benefits of an IRA making a one-time contribution extra to their account. Again, they will be required to open and contribute at least $250 to a Roth IRA to receive the third decade funds. Those choosing to end military career service before reaching the full retirement age will find value in learning about the different employer-sponsored plans that could be available to them. Understanding their fee and investment structure as well as their matching options is taught in the third decade classes, but it does well to remind them as they seek civilian employment. Those making the military a career will be outside our eligibility range when they retire, but they may find receiving the lead retirement resource at their final progress meeting for their future reference valuable. The focus, however, will be on those who are ending military careers prior to their 20 years of creditable service. Military members will often approach the BRS conversation from a standpoint of whether or not they intend to make the military a career or temporary employment. When the military service is considered temporary, they are less likely to be contributing to the TSP. This can be due to not fully understanding how to contribute to it, or misunderstanding around the TSP and pension being two separate components for the retirement system. Many don't think about TSP being valuable as a rollover account. As they progress along their civilian career journey, they can also collect other employer plans and roll them into the likely lower fee platform. For those choosing to make the military a career, helping them understand TSP's matching option, low fees, and investment options will be key. They will likely be offered special pay or bonuses at some point in their career. Having a plan for that money, whether to add to a TSP or achieve a financial goal, is also an important factor. Established in 1986 by Congress, the Federal Employees Retirement System, or FERS, consists of three components: the Basic Benefit Plan, the benefits earned through the Social Security Administration, and the Thrift Savings Plan, or TSP. They are meant to work in tandem to ensure a military member's retirement security. In an overview of the components, we're not going to spend much time with Social Security benefits since we are all familiar with them. In regard to your participants, it may be helpful to educate them on where they can go to estimate their benefits. While they may not necessarily need this information during the program with you, it may be helpful if they are considering more long-term employment. Military members will refer to the system as BRS or Blended Retirement System, or sometimes simply TSP. The Basic Benefit Plan component is the defined benefit plan, more commonly referred to as the pension portion of the retirement system. It is determined by a predetermined formula based on the number of creditable service years and the highest income for 3 consecutive years. We will get more into that in a moment. The Thrift Savings Plan is the defined contribution component of the plan. In 2018, the government revamped the retirement system in an effort to increase the number of individuals leaving military and government service with retirement benefits. The TSP gained matching contributions. Prior to that, contributions were made only by the participant. During 2018, those in service had the option of choosing to remain in the High 3 system, which is now referred to the Legacy System, or transitioning to the Blended Retirement System, or BRS. Under BRS, the calculation for the pension was reduced slightly as the government started contributing to the individual's TSP. Anyone who joined the service starting at the 1st of January 2019 has been automatically placed in the blended retirement system. Here's a more in-depth look at the pension portion of the plan. Similar to any other pension plan, once the individual has met the required vesting components and reaches an eligible retirement age, they receive a monthly income for life. The federal pension is often referred to as the High 3 plan due to the way it calculates the benefit. It takes into account earnings from the highest 3 consecutive years of employment. While these 3 years are typically found at the end of service, they can be from any period of federal employment. 1% of those earnings are then multiplied by the number of credible service years from any eligible department, agency, or service. If an individual leaves the uniformed services with unpaid retirement and enters civilian federal employment, they can apply their military service towards their creditable years. All unpaid sick leave for any service can also be applied, along with the option to buy back creditable service, which varies by sector. In order to get the max benefit, 20 years of creditable service is required. If they work fewer than 5, they may be eligible for a refund of their contributions. They can start and stop government employment, adding creditable service along the way. For uniformed services, there is no deduction in their pay for the pension. Congress appropriates the funds required to pay future retirees in the annual Defense Appropriations Bill. The money is transferred to the Military Retirement Fund, from which the retirees are paid. The calculation for the basic benefit plan for military members depends on the year they joined. After 2019, they are automatically placed in the BRS. Before 2018, they were on the Legacy High 3. To further complicate things, during 2018, they had the option of choosing to remain in the Legacy system or move to the blended system. It can be quite confusing. Knowing if they are receiving matching contributions or not is important for the TSP discussion. The main differences are the multiplier used, either 2.5 or 2.0, and the match offered with TSP. The participants can find the specific plan they are on by visiting the websites listed, the Defense Finance and Accounting Services, or DFAS, and the TSP site. They can also find it listed on their LES. And the last component of the plan is the Thrift Savings Plan, which is the qualified plan similar to a 401k. The Thrift Savings Plan, a cornerstone of retirement planning for uniformed service members, oversees an impressive $845 billion in assets, making it the nation's largest defined contribution plan. With 7 million participants, its scale and active engagement of its members highlights its critical role in ensuring financial security. The individual chooses a percentage of their base pay to contribute to pre- or post-tax accounts from the limited choice of funds with very low fees. There are special tax exclusions for service members in designated combat zones. As taxes are eliminated for service members in combat zones, any contribution they make will be tax-free, which is unique for the traditional option. While the contributions will not be taxed when they are taken out, the earnings on them will be. The maximum annual contribution for the TSP also increases for those in combat zones. Despite the fact that it has been a part of the plan since its inception, the shift to matching contributions has made utilizing TSP a more popular choice. Like many qualified employer plans, it's likely the participant doesn't know the details of the account and possibly hasn't even created login credentials. Despite automatically being enrolled into TSP with 5% of their base pay into the L Fund, which we'll discuss later in this module, they still need to claim their account. As a new account portal was released in June of 2022, anyone who owned an account prior but hasn't logged in since will also need to do so. contributions can be changed in their pay platform, which differ by service. There's the MOL, DFAST, and Direct Access, all of which are detailed in resources. To guide your participant, you won't need to understand each platform. Simply ask them where they view their LES, that will be the platform they need. There is an annual limit, which typically changes every year. As a side note, it's important to know that the matching only occurs in months where the participant contributes. It is not an annual total contributions match. On a rare occasion, if they max out their contributions before the end of the year, matching will only occur in the months they contributed. Should this be the case, consider strategizing the contribution plan to ensure all 12 months have a match. It is highly unlikely that you will find an active duty service member capable of contributing the annual limit, let alone more than it, due to the fact that contributions can only be made by designating a percentage of their base pay. That means that the monthly contribution to meet or exceed the max will likely be half or more of the individual's pay. There are two scenarios in which you might find they have the capacity to meet the max. The first is if they contribute special bonuses or incentive pay, as they can choose to contribute a portion or all of it, or if they are granted permission to work a second job. The TSP calculator link is an excellent tool for those curious about what they can save for the federal retirement plan. It includes a retirement income modeler, federal ballpark estimate calculator, and how much can I contribute calculator that breaks down the annual limit into monthly payments. Here's a breakdown of how the contributions are matched. When first enrolled, they will have a total contribution of 10% their base pay, as the participant will be contributing 5%, and they will be receiving a matching 5%. Regardless of whether or not the participant contributes, they will receive 1% base pay contribution that is subject to vesting minimums. They receive a full match for the first 3% and then 0.5% for the next 2%. The match maxes at 5%, which includes the 1% guaranteed contribution and 4% additional matching contribution. They are automatically enrolled into the age-appropriate target date fund known as the Life Cycle Fund or L Fund in the TSP options. This remains a good choice to take advantage of automatic rebalancing. Risk tolerance can be matched by adjusting the target year. Each L fund is comprised of the other options available in TSP. The farther the time horizon, the more aggressive the mix. TSP funds are similar to mutual funds in that they allow investors to pool money and purchase shares of a portfolio containing hundreds of investment holdings. TSP funds are designed specifically and exclusively for TSP participants, with their only goal being to maximize participants' retirement savings. Let's take a closer look at each of the individual options. The Government Securities Investment Fund, G Fund, is the most conservative, being derived from short-term U.S. Treasuries securities. Due to the time horizon of our participants, this will not be a heavy investment in their mix. Becoming ever so slightly more aggressive, but still quite conservative, is the Fixed Income Index Investment Fund, or F Fund. Again, these will not be a heavy weighted inclusion. The participants will benefit from historical growth by including mostly the next two funds. The Common Stock Investment Fund, or C Fund, is comprised of nearly 82% of the U.S. stock market, matching the performance of the S&P 500. If the participant is only willing to invest in one fund other than the L Fund, this would be the one that could potentially benefit them the most. The Small Cap Stock Index Investment Fund, S Fund, can kind of be considered as picking up the rest of the domestic market. It is slightly more aggressive than the C Fund. When invested in both the C and the S Fund, the portfolio will have captured close to 100% of the U.S. domestic market. The International Stock Market Investment Fund, I Fund, carries the most risk, being comprised of large companies located in developing countries. While it has similar performance to the MSCI All Country World Index, it does exclude companies located in Hong Kong Investable Market Index and China. TSP is considered to be a low-fee option among similar private-owned retirement options. The gross administrative expense ratio is what the government has calculated to cover the cost of administering the plan. The investment expense ratio is what is paid to the TSP manager. The net administrative expense ratio is the cost of the plan after forfeitures and loan fees are subtracted. When someone leaves the program without being vested, TSP applies that 1% agency automatic contribution that has accumulated back to the plan. It also applies the fees collected from TSP loans. Both reduce the overall cost of the plan. The total expense ratio is the net administrative expense ratio plus the investment expense ratio. This averages out to be the 0.048%. Added in 2024 was the option to invest through the mutual fund window, comprised of a continually growing list of mutual funds, currently totaling around 4,500 mutual funds. You can think of the mutual fund window as adding funds that the general public has access to, such as Vanguard Total Stock Market Index Fund, Schwab S&P 500 Index Fund, Fidelity Total Market Index Fund, just to name a few, as well as Vanguard and Fidelity Target Date Funds. In order to utilize the mutual fund window, participants must sell their shares of TSP exclusive funds. These funds are then used to purchase new shares from the available general public funds list. The initial investment to the mutual fund window cannot exceed 25% of the participant's total TSP account balance. This means the participants will likely require a minimum of $40,000 in their TSP account, as the investment for entering the mutual fund window is $10,000. In an effort to prevent participants from chasing the market, they are limited to conducting 2 transactions per month, unless they are moving their money into the G fund. They are allowed unlimited contributions to the G fund. Once in the G fund, they can freely move into the other TSP-specific funds. When considering purchasing mutual funds through the mutual fund window, calculate all of the fees. In addition to the fund-specific fees and expenses, using the mutual fund window incurs an annual administrative fee of $150 and a cost of $28.75 per transaction. Total costs may turn an attractive fund into a less affordable fund when purchased through the mutual fund window rather than a Roth IRA. Third Decade does not recommend taking loans or non-qualified withdrawals from any retirement account. The same is true for TSP. Lending practices to government employees, specifically military members, have historically been quite predatory. It's not uncommon for military leaders, co-workers, and some service-specific financial specialists to lean towards TSP loans as they are more transparent for the service member. As with any consideration for a loan against retirement savings, illustrate the consequences and weigh them against the benefits. When applying for a TSP loan, there is a resource that spells out the potential consequences. Of note, a TSP loan is not a consumer credit loan. It is not reflected on the credit report and is only reported to the IRS. If it is decided that a TSP loan is the most beneficial action, you'll next want to consider the length of the loan repayment terms with the length of service. The loan is repaid via allotment, directly out of the service member's paycheck, while they're employed. Leaving employment triggers new repayment options and must be budgeted in their new income. Up to 2 loans can be taken out at one time. We will compare the residential and general loans soon. Additionally, the minimum amount that can be borrowed is $1,000 of the participant's own contributions, with the maximum being $50,000. The fixed interest rate at which the funds are borrowed is determined by the interest rate of the G fund, in effect of the 15th of the previous month. The current month's rate is always posted on the TSP website. It's important to understand that while repayment is deducted straight out of the paycheck, it is the participant's responsibility to ensure it is for the correct amount and that it is on time. Military admin processing times can fluctuate due to staffing, workload, and workup tempos. Confirming the loan is processed correctly is the participant's responsibility. Repayment will begin 60 days from the loan distribution. The two types of loans that can be received are general purpose and residential. A participant can carry up to 2 loans at one time, but only one can be a residential loan. In order to take advantage of another loan, the previous loan must be paid off for at least 30 days. The funds are only taxable if they are not repaid. And the process for obtaining a loan is done simply by completing a form on the website. A formal applications with qualifiers is not part of the process. However, each has its own processing fee and requires spousal consent. A general loan can be used for any reason. Because of that, no documentation for its need is required. This can be helpful in rare situations that make personal loans difficult to acquire. The sum can be repaid in 1 to 5 years. A residential loan can be used for the construction or purchase of a primary residence, not an investment or vacation property. Documentation of any kind showing that the residence is being purchased by the participant can be submitted as verification within 30 days of submitting a request. Different from a mortgage or a HELOC, it does not have a tax advantage, as it is not considered either type of credit. The property must be a livable dwelling. It cannot be a parcel of land. It cannot be used to pay off an existing mortgage, buy out another person's share of the residence, or make repairs or renovations to existing property. This type of loan can be repaid in 5 to 15 years. Financial hardship withdrawals can be taken out by active duty to fund an immediate and significant financial need. There are nonprofits that reduce the burden of financial hardship. These are detailed and discussed in the financial assistance module. Participants are afforded the opportunity to take one financial hardship withdrawal every 6 months. Documentation for a qualifying reason must be provided. It is different from a loan in that it permanently reduces the TSP balance because it cannot be repaid. Additionally, the $1,000 minimum withdrawal can be their own contribution or a combination of their own contributions and the earnings. These withdrawals are subject to 10% early withdrawal penalty and any other applicable income taxes. We won't spend much time on the exceptions to the 10% early withdrawal tax penalty because third decade participants are not likely to need funds for these events, but it's always a possibility. The events highlighted in gold are the rare events that have the potential to be most likely affecting our participants. Next primary would be the blue-green events. And lastly, the white events. Much more likely to occur or be up for consideration is separation from the military. There are three main points to review when preparing for separation. The first is whether or not the participant has reached the vesting point for the defined contribution portion of the plan, or TSP. The next consideration is the status of any loans. Lastly, but most importantly, is to determine a new vehicle for retirement savings. These topics will be discussed in more detail in the ending service and beyond module. A final thing to consider for both active duty and veteran participants is part of the estate planning process of electing beneficiaries. They can elect up to 20 primary beneficiaries for their TSP. If no beneficiaries are chosen, the government distributes in a default order of precedence, starting with the spouse and ending with the state-defined next of kin. Of note, a domestic partner is not identified as a possible beneficiary in the default order. A spouse will have the most control over the inherited account. Third decade participants generally don't require a robust estate plan, but ensuring beneficiaries are designated is on the top of every recommendation list.